I finally got a chance to play Ultra Kill for the first time. With this game having been stuck on my backlog for what feels like an eternity, I actually kind of regret not playing this game sooner because Ultra Kill is amazing. Everything from the simple and snappy yet thought out moveset to the jaw-dropping music pieces, level design, characters and gameplay has been executed perfectly to create a feeling that I can only describe as chaos and pure fun. I got hit with a desire to keep playing every time I thought about stopping for the day, which led me to completing level after level until I found myself at the end. Thinking there was nothing else left to do, I thought about moving on to the next game, until I found out that I hadn't actually completed every single available level in Ultra Kill. I was missing the 2P levels, or in other words, I had to complete extra content. And this is exactly what I want to talk about in this video, because why do some games include extra content? What purpose does it serve? Why do some of us like it and others hate it? Can there be too much extra content, and do games at the end of the day even need it? Before we break this whole thing open and start analyzing, I think it's important to get a clear definition of what extra content actually is. Extra content, at least in video games, is defined as an additional part of the game that could be significant to the progression of the story or the character you play as, but is not required to complete the main game. Now that we all understand what extra content in video games is, the next obvious question to ask is, what purpose does extra content have? Now, I know that there is a very simple answer to this, which is that extra content is there for the sole purpose of extending the playtime. But I don't like that answer, because if this is the case, then why not make the main game longer instead of making secret levels and hidden quests that the majority of people won't end up completing? So there must be something else at play here. And one of those things is that extra content in video games forces the player to interact with the game in other ways. A great example of this are the challenges in Ultra Kill. Whenever you complete a level in Ultra Kill, the game shows you the time it took for you to beat the level, how many kills you got, how many style points you got, and how many times you died. But it also shows you which challenge there is for that specific level. Now, these can range from you completing a level without touching water to you parrying a punch from a giant whose hand is like 3 times your size. But one of the most interesting levels to take a look at is actually the very first level after the tutorial. The challenge is simple: complete the level in only 10 seconds. For anyone wondering if this is physically possible, it's not, at least if you try to beat the level in the way you are supposed to. You complete this challenge by selecting a specific gun, walking up to a fountain and then throwing a coin into the fountain, which opens a direct passageway to the exit, allowing you to clear the challenge. And it's moments just like this one where you have to think outside the box and explore the level in new ways that makes the challenges in Ultra Kill so special. Because we get to break the rules of the game for the sake of adding 1 more extra percent to the total completion. Even if it's completely unnecessary to beat any of the challenges in Ultra Kill, it's just as fun as the base game, which makes one wonder why they aren't just a part of the main adventure. Getting a bit off track, let's now take a closer look at the P levels I keep mentioning, and more specifically which requirements there are for unlocking them. Remember when I quickly went over the different scores you could get in a level? Well, to gain access to the first P level, you simply need to achieve pure S ranks across all of the scores and complete the level without dying a single time to get 1 P rank. And you need 15 of these in order to open the P door in Act 1. It's by no means an easy challenge, since one mistake can lead to you being forced to start a level over from the beginning. And even though the levels in Ultra Kill, at least until Act 3, aren't very long, it can still turn into a tedious and time-consuming experience if you're not prepared to play the same level over again for an unknown amount of time. One thing that I did notice about my own gameplay is that I was a lot more inclined to experimenting with different weapons when I was going for the P ranks than when I was just playing through the game normally. this probably has something to do with the fact that I very early on got a favorite weapon that, if used correctly, could just carry me all the way to the end. But due to me having to beat the level in a specific amount of time and also needing to achieve a certain amount of style points, I had to experiment with different combos and switching patterns in order to find the quickest and most efficient weapon rotation. I played around with the moveset in ways that I otherwise never would have thought of trying. I began to explore each crevice of every level for the sole purpose of finding the fastest possible route, all in order to unlock one extra level with a single boss fight. A small reward in some people's eyes, but the important thing to focus on is the feeling you get when unlocking and completing the level. That all of the extra work you have put into each level ends up being worth it. Sure, if the boss was bad or a complete disappointment, then there wouldn't be a reason for anyone to go the extra mile and get all of the P ranks. But due to there being a really well made, lore-filled and exciting boss fight, it's only natural that those who actually like the game will put in that extra amount of effort in order to see it. And this might be the very reason why both of the Prime Sanctum levels aren't a part of the base game. Because if they were a mandatory part of every player's Ultra Kill experience, then I think the anticipation and excitement for these levels would be almost non-existent. Or in other words, it's the immense amount of extra work you have to put into each level that makes the 2P levels so rewarding and memorable. And this part right here is what I want to put into perspective, because the same could be argued for the majority of the late game quests and all of Act 3 in Hollow Knight Silksong. Some of you probably know that you don't need to complete every single quest in Silksong in order to get an ending. You simply have to follow the main quest line, which consists of you making it into the Citadel, collecting 3 music pieces and then going up against Grandmother Silk. All of this sounds pretty similar to what you can do in Ultra Kill, but where the two games begin to differentiate from one another is when you take a look at the amount of extra content that's present. Because in contrast to Ultra Kill that primarily only has the P levels or secret exits as extra content, there's a lot more of it in Silksong. And while I did enjoy the P levels in Ultra Kill, I didn't think that they were the best part of the game. But Act 3 of Silksong is without a doubt my favorite portion of this game. It has the best boss fights, the lore is amazing, the ending is fantastic, and the game is even more difficult. It's in Act 3 where I think that Silksong shines the brightest. So if this is the case, then why is it you have to do so much extra work in order to play it? Well, it could be Team Cherry's way of saying that you aren't worthy enough to play Act 3 unless you complete an unbelievable amount of side quests, but I think it once again has something to do with making this part of Silksong feel even more rewarding and memorable, while also forcing the player to explore the world. Now, it's no lie that Silksong is a beautiful game. The world design of each area is impeccable, filled with details, and is a pleasure to look at. But at no point are you required to explore every single area in Silksong in order to get an ending. Just like you also don't have to talk to every NPC, complete the Hunter's Journal, collect all of the tools, mask shards, spool fragments, fleas and other things in order to beat the game. But if you want to experience Act 3, or in my opinion the best part of Silksong, then you have to complete some of these time-consuming tasks. Some may think that this is a dumb concept, because this could also be seen as an easy way for the developers to extend the playtime without needing to do a whole lot of extra and complicated work. But I think that this is Team Cherry's way of rewarding the players who are willing to put in the extra amount of time it takes to explore each part of Farloom. By chasing the bonus that is Act 3 of Silksong, you unknowingly end up witnessing the full scope of this world. Just like you do in Ultra Kill when trying to unlock the P levels, as you may come across secrets you otherwise would have missed during a normal run. But what if you simply don't care about Act 3 of Silksong? What if you just want to experience everything before the late game stuff? Well, if we consider the Weaver Queen ending the normal ending of Silksong, then did you know that there is an alternate ending that revolves around this little fellow? beautiful creature, right? If you decide to collect this screaming mishmash of a thing and give it to this NPC, you first of all get the worst chiropractor experience ever, but are now also cursed. This means that you can no longer heal, equip tools, use silk skills, or change crests as long as you are cursed. And the only thing you have to do in order to get the alternative ending in Act 2 is beat Grandmother Silk. I don't think I have to explain why this is a difficult task. Despite this big increase in difficulty, it would still make sense if the majority of people playing Silksong got this ending before entering Act 3, simply because it requires far less work to obtain. But if we take a look at the global achievement page, then it's a different story. As of making this video, a total of 28.8% of players have gotten the Sister of Void achievement. In contrast, only 16.6% of players have gotten the Twisted Child ending. I think this outcome can be summed up to people simply not knowing about the Twisted Child ending, resulting in most players getting the Sister of Void ending instead. And I think this comparison raises the following question. Why do some of us chase extra content in games and others don't? Now, there are of course many contributing factors to consider when trying to answer this question. It's obvious that a certain level of interest is needed in order to just play the game, let alone complete everything in it. But I think the drive to chase extra content has more to do with the player's personality than with the content itself. If you, for example, are a completionist who takes pleasure in finishing every quest in Silksong, beating the game on Steel Soul, and earning all of the P ranks in Ultra Kill, it's only natural that you'd carry that behavior into other games as well. And if you care more about exploration rather than completion, you will probably still end up stumbling upon a good chunk of the extra content due to your curiosity. But if you're more of a minimalist who cares about the main story more than anything, it's obvious that you will miss some of the secrets. But compared to the other personalities, you'll probably also find it easier to accept this, since it was never your intention to fully complete the game in the first place. If these personality traits are true, then it makes sense why more people have earned the Sister of Void achievement compared to how many that have gotten the Cursed Child ending. Because even though it's easier to get cursed and defeat Grandmother Silk if we don't take the difficulty into consideration, it's due to the fact that the Cursed Child ending requires one to branch off the main route that less people will naturally stumble upon it. Another extremely important factor to take into consideration when talking about why some of us chase extra content in games is time. It's almost universally agreed that teenagers have far more free time compared to adults who have to juggle work, family and personal responsibilities while finding room for gaming. And this lack of free time means that some people won't fully complete games even if they want to, especially if that individual also has a huge backlog of games that they want to play. You could of course make the argument that you at some point reached the age where responsibilities like taking care of a job and a family no longer exist, resulting in more time for video games. But the problematic thing about this is that none of us know how long our lives will be. So instead of focusing on a hypothetical future, it's better to talk about the value of our time in the present. Or a little more specifically, is it worth investing your time and effort into the extra content of this game? There is of course no right or wrong answer to this, since it solely depends on your individual opinion about the game you are playing. But certain aspects of a game, such as the complexity of the story, the overall gameplay and the amount of extra content, do play a contributing role. And it's usually the last one that determines whether it's worthwhile to fully complete a game, which raises the question: can a game have too much extra content? In order to answer this question, I want to divert your attention over to a game that contains a whole lot of extra content, which is The Binding of Isaac. Now, for a game that takes up virtually no space on your computer, it's absolutely insane how many characters, endings and items it manages to contain. For anyone wondering, you only need to complete a single run with any character to say you finished the game. And if that is your only goal, then you can complete The Binding of Isaac in about 30 minutes. But if you're looking to complete this game 100%, then be prepared to spend not just hours, but days of pure grinding. Upon hearing this for the first time, it certainly sounds overwhelming, not to mention extremely time consuming. The way The Binding of Isaac makes up for this is through its replayability and short runs. Depending on which ending you are going for and the character you play as, you can complete a run of Isaac in 15 to 40 minutes. On top of this, you also have the ability to unlock multiple items and characters during the same run. All of this means that you can make a lot of progress in a short amount of time, which makes the sheer amount of extra content feel more acceptable. If Silksong, for example, had the same amount of extra content as Isaac in the form of playable characters, endings and all, then it wouldn't feel the same, because Silksong requires far more traversal and talking compared to Isaac. It's knowing that you will most likely make some type of progress no matter what you do in Isaac that makes getting everything in it feel possible. Yes, it will still require an extreme amount of time to do this, but if you only have 30 minutes every day to play games, it makes sense why you are more inclined to play a game like Isaac rather than a game like Silksong, where you can easily spend 15 minutes running around not knowing what to do. Even in a game like Ultra Kill, where the levels aren't very long, at least until Fraud, it would probably still be too much if you had to complete every single level over and over again, with the only change being the character you play as. So it is possible for a game to have too much extra content if your rate of progression doesn't keep up with how much extra content there is. It's the reason why some people will think it's more of a drag to fully complete Silksong than Isaac, even though you will most likely spend more time 100%ing Isaac than Silksong. It's also the reason why I enjoyed getting the P ranks in Ultra Kill, because I could very quickly collect them due to the short duration of the levels. And when I also began to consider the reward for getting all of the P ranks, I knew that this was time well spent. That I later wouldn't look back and think to myself that it was nothing but a waste of time and effort. That the extra content genuinely felt worthwhile. So to answer the question I introduced at the start of this video, games absolutely don't need but certainly benefit from having extra content in them. It allows us to interact with the world in other ways while also making the game more replayable. We also don't have to pay for stuff like DLC in order to branch off the intended route, which is always a nice addition, especially for those of us who care more about the money we spend than the game itself. And it's also safe to say that a lot of games would feel too short or too shallow without some form of extra content. But the big thing to take away from this video is that there needs to be balance. Balance between how much extra content there is and how fast players can actually reach those moments. Because if the task in itself is simple, less people will complete it if the journey ends up being long, difficult, tedious, and at the end of the day not worth their time or effort. Yes, it's not possible to satisfy everyone, but maybe that's also one of the reasons why extra content is optional. It's there for the players who are willing to venture away from the main story for the purpose of exploration, completion, or just for fun. It's a non-mandatory part of the game that's there to make as many people as possible happy with the game. This right here is the beauty of extra content in video games. Because even though we don't always think of it as an essential gameplay aspect, it's definitely something we'd miss if it wasn't there. Hey everyone, I want to thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end and hope you would consider giving it a like or my channel a sub. As always, if I have forgotten to talk about something important, then please leave a comment about it down below. I hope you have a great day and or night, and until we meet again, bye bye.